And you have to break it down so it's understandable to everybody. And I used to explain to the parents, there's the 3 S's, essentially. The structure, the supervision, and the support. Kids thrive off structure. They need it because they need to learn boundaries. They need to know who's in charge and who's directing things. Without that, things go sideways. Supervision is clearly important because the adults have to help a child go through certain things. So you got to supervise them doing it. And then the other thing is support. And I think there's 2 levels of it. One is basic physical support, and then the other one is emotional support. When those 3 S's kind of fall apart, the biggest thing is to be proactive.
Welcome back to the 5-Star Life Show. I'm your host, Coach Seth, and we're having a fun conversation with Dr. Bruinsma, who spent 35 years really serving the community, working with kids and families. And I wanted to bring you on our show again because, you talked in the first segment about your belief in impacting the family. Like if you want to impact kids, you got to get to the nucleus, to the family. And you said you're passionate about it. I know you're passionate about it because you convinced me to shift how we run a program and to add parents to it. And it's been one of the most fulfilling things we've ever done. So I want to thank you for that.
That's glad to hear about it that way.
And it is amazing. And because we've worked with kids for the last 20 years very successfully, and we've been asked for 20 years by schools, but different. What do you do for parents? Can you do something for parents? And you had some ideas, and you kind of put your arm around me and gave support in some direction. And I just want to say thank you for that.
I appreciate that, and thank you to Bree if she's listening. I mean, she was a great curriculum developer and stuff like that. So she needs a little credit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've got a great team, but we were talking about families, and you were giving some practical tips about, how do you invest in your kids and develop a healthy family? And you talked to the guy at the gym that said, man, faith and invest in your kids. And you were giving some practical tips on you have to be around your kids. It's quality and quantity, both. There's no perfect algorithm, but you got to have a certain level of quantity to get to the quality, right?
Exactly. You got to be there. I had thought before, and I always did this in terms of when I looked, because the court would ask for an evaluation of a family, right? And you have to break it down so it's understandable to everybody. And I used to explain to the parents, there's the 3 S's, essentially. The structure, the supervision, and the support. Kids thrive off structure. They need it because they need to learn boundaries. They need to know there's a regular rhythm and pace to the day. They need to know who's in charge and who's directing things. Without that, things go sideways. Supervision is clearly important because the adults have to help a child go through certain things. So you got to supervise them doing it. You wouldn't let a 5-year-old jump in a car, right? And take the wheel. No, you wouldn't do that. You don't even, when they get 15, 16, you're kind of doing it, but you're like a little nervous. Like I was scared as heck. But you supervised it really well. And then the other thing is support. And I think there's 2 levels of it. One is basic physical support, and providing the basic needs of what a child needs, the adequate nutrition, housing, a good place to live, that kind of thing. And then the other one is emotional support. So when those things are not there, when those 3 S's kind of fall apart, then you do get, you have problems with emotional problems, you have mental illness creeping in, and I believe that the biggest thing is to be proactive and that we really need early on to support our families proactively when they need the help, right? Especially in the early years, from like pre-birth to like 3 are so important. The brain development of a child is amazing.
It is
at 3
amazing.
years old, all right? They're absorbing a whole lot of stuff. Their brain's forming, things like that. And we say, oh, the brain's not finished forming until 25 or 26. But really the big stuff is early on.
Yes.
And I kind of feel like, being proactive, getting people to think about being proactive. So we're lucky today because we're coming on when actually they were reporting on the news a big study that came out and something that impacts. It's like everyone talks about this and they go, what about cell phones? What about social media?
Right.
Things like that. So I wanted to share with your audience some of the research that just came out that I think is like important to do. Now, let me say before I start, I'm not against social media. I'm not against, a place where people can find community, like people that are in rural areas, people that they can't get out and see people, having Zoom and other ways of that's a good thing. But for our kids, this is one where we have to be intentional about our supervision and our structure. And let me just give you a little idea. They came out today. So there was 12,000 children, 9 to 10, that UCFS tracked over 3 years. And they found daily social media jump from 7 minutes to 74 minutes during the course of the study. All right?
7 to 74
4 minutes. So that's a third, but they also had a 35% increase in depressive symptoms in that population. Okay? The heavier the social media you used, it preceded depression. Not the other way around. It preceded depression. That was huge coming out today. The other thing it talked about, that tweens, experiencing cyberbullying had more than double the risk of suicidal thoughts and attempts. And we're in a crisis in terms of that, in terms of adolescent mental health in this country. We're in a crisis, and we can talk about all the stuff around that and the system and everything. But let me tell you
I was on a call today. I was on a call today. We got a text from one of our directors. Hey, we've got a girl here in our summer program who suicide ideation, talking about taking her life. She's going into 6th grade. Yeah. So it's prevalent.
I treated a 7-year-old that tried to kill himself. This was years ago, but it's real. Here's another one, and this is out of neuroscience research. This habitual doom scrolling. I had to look that up. It's the constant exposure to distressing content affects the human brain development. You're actually increasing anxiety, depression, self-harming, And we've seen it going up and up, especially since 2010. Another thing, and this I like because this psychologist, Jonathan Haidt, I don't want to mispronounce his name, he came out and he was really advocating, and I know psychologists, we're pretty wide scope of opinions. A lot of times you ask 2 psychologists one thing, you're going to get 3 opinions. But he was talking about that should be no smartphones before the age of 14. Wow. No social media before the age of 16, right? And phone-free schools. Now, this was backed up by his meta-analysis that he did, And he said this linking of tech is totally linked to increased anxiety, increased depression, and self-harm. And I think that was pretty important stat for parents to hear.
It's huge. And the crazy thing is we kind of know it, but to have the data to back it up, because kind of my generation of parents, so parents that are probably between 40 and 50, we were the guinea pigs to this. Our kids were the guinea pigs of the phones, but we as parents were the guinea pigs of the first parental generation to have to deal with this.
Yes.
And we were sold a bag of goods. We were told it's educational. It's good for brain development. Now, there was the other side that was saying, be careful, right? Mm-hmm. But there were so many people saying, it's great for brain development. It's great for the gamification is good for their hand-eye coordination. It's good for certain motor skills. It's good for all these things, there's some truth to that. Mm-hmm. But what we had no idea of was the addictive nature and how it warped their brain and give them like the idea of delayed gratification. It's just, you just scroll and swipe and it's so addicting. And so you'd rather be on that screen than in your real life.
Right.
And so it is, we got to take a quick commercial break, but I hate doing that because this is such a fun conversation. But on the break, text your friends or family, tell them to tune in and make sure they're part of the show. You can also check it out at 5starlife.org. We'll be right back after this.
Hey, 5-Star Nation. I just want to let you know that you can now listen to the 5-Star Life Show with Coach Seth anywhere podcasts are streamed, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. You can also watch us by subscribing to our YouTube channel at The 5-Star Life. You can watch us on our new program platform partner, Your Home TV. Just go to yourhometv.com and look for 5-Star Life with Coach Seth. Finally, if you've been listening and you want to take the next step in getting involved, volunteering, donating, or bringing 5-Star Life to your home or community, go to 5starlife.org. And for those parents and grandparents, there is still time to register your kids for our transformational summer camps and clubs. You can find all open programs at 5starlife.org.
Welcome back to the 5-Star Life Show. I'm your host, Coach Seth, and we're having a really fun conversation with Dr. Bruinsma. 35 years in the trenches, working with kids and families. Got his doctoral degree in Chicago, got his social work degree as well, but has really been in the trenches working with families and has been a great support and kind of, I don't know, just has mentored me in many ways in what we're doing. So I'm grateful to have you on. And so we left off talking, you were just getting into this study about phone usage and how it's taking anxiety to new levels and suicide ideation and suicide period. Do you have more on that, or were you?
Well, I have a little bit more if you want to hear. It's it kind of like the CDC. I looked up some of the analysis of that they're doing, and they studied 20,000 students that are frequent users of social media, and they found a lot of bullying on there, a lot of feelings of sadness, serious suicidal ideation. 43% of frequent users reported persistent sadness.
43%. 43%. I just got to say it again because, I mean, almost half experience persistent
And here's
sadness.
The real difficult one. Over 20% had seriously considered suicide. So now, I will say when I'm talking about this, these are correlations.
Sure.
This is not causation.
Sure.
But after so many correlations, you start to pay attention to things, right? And so I'm like, okay, so how do we turn from this in a lot of ways? Because with every technology, there's good and there's bad.
Absolutely.
And I think it's parents' responsibilities to monitor this issue, right? And in terms of phones, it's simply monitoring, how much time are you spending on it? Where are you getting your thoughts from? Can there be times when we're not on it? Like when we're eating, when we're having family time, things like that. There should be some days where maybe we're not on it. I have a good example of myself the other day. I was, now that I'm semi-retired, I didn't take my cell phone on a walk with the dog. I took an hour walk and I didn't have my phone on me. I was like, holy cow, I don't have my phone. Usually I use it to call somebody I haven't talked to in a while.
Yeah.
And I got back to the house and I said, that felt pretty good.
Isn't that amazing?
Felt pretty good because, and I thought, I said, well, that gives my brain a little downtime to reorganize itself, right? To restructure itself, you know.
Yes.
I'm a little ADHD, so there's a lot of thoughts going through my head at once, you know. But it was really good. It was a good time to just be with my own thoughts.
I love that idea, and I love that you're saying that, because in tying this all into what you were saying about, you know, providing the structure, the supervision, the support, and a lot of this comes back to modeling. I mean, for parents, I mean, there's parents listening right now that are like, okay, I know I need to get control of this. And there's a lot of parents that have a lot of guilt about this. Like they feel bad about it. They know their kids are in front of a screen too much, but they're not sure what to do. And I think what you're saying is, man, start with yourself.
Yeah.
Like model it, you know, go for a walk, go for a bike ride. For my family, we would do like tech breaks. So like often Sunday was like a no tech day in our home, you know, just like, and they just knew it and they didn't like it.
Yeah.
But it was always weird. They always liked it. They didn't like it, but they always eventually liked it because they would get creative. They would connect with each other. It was just like this, they'd come alive.
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch that.
It's a great thing to watch it. I also believe, as long as you're talking about modeling, okay, it'd be good for parents, and this is something, if you haven't gotten yourself from your family, to start thinking about building up your own pro-social skills. And what do I mean by that? I taught class this past semester, and I said, what is the one social skill, pro-social skill that you need to learn to be a successful adult? And I looked at the class, and of course they all stare back at you like no one's going to say anything.
Right.
You know, I don't want to get the wrong answer.
Especially you're talking to Dr.
Yeah,
Bruinsma.
well, there you go. I said listening. Listening is the number one. And we have a real difficult time doing that. But I have a theory, and I think it's borne out with a lot of research, that the more you learn pro-social skills, the more you think pro-socially. And then when you're doing that, that's going to lead to more what I call a development of your morals, of your own structure for your life. That's something you're going to pass on. I think that's where the faith piece comes in a lot of times. You know, how does it fit, you know, with society? How does my living my faith out fit in society? And I think our kids look to us to see, is dad doing the right thing all the time? You know, and if he isn't, he needs to do the right thing, you know? And that's hard. It's hard for everybody.
Which it's so interesting because I'm a person of faith too. And, you know, that's interesting because there's a lot of kids that, let's just talk about the church, the Christian church. There's studies about, you know, the numbers of kids that grow up in the church that never go up and come back.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of what you're talking about. There's a discrepancy between what we say we believe and how we live.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Now, interesting enough, this last year, there was an increase in people going to church. It came down quite a bit, like 30%, and now it's coming back up. And this younger generation, the 20-somethings, are a little bit more into that. They're like trying to figure out, what really do I believe in? Because if you don't believe in anything, then what are you doing here?
What's your purpose?
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Why does anything matter?
Have some purpose and goals, and you know, like I was very clear in growing up. My purpose was to serve other people. I didn't know what a social worker did. I didn't know what a psychologist did. But as long as I was doing something, I could be cleaning toilets and still serving people.
Right.
But I knew that that's what I had to do. All right. I was not skilled enough to be an engineer or a plumber or an electrician. I just be honest. Okay, that's not the way the brain worked for me. But I did know how to connect with people, and I did know how to talk. And I felt like, okay, this naturally, using my talents, this is where I fit in. And
you fit in, but you also, it energizes you. You feel alive. You feel connected. You feel like you have value and purpose.
Yep.
And that's what so many kids today,
because
of this, don't have. They're following somebody else's purpose or whatever the algorithms say would be a good purpose to have.
And so why wouldn't you be sad? And why wouldn't you get down? And why wouldn't you just want to end it all?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, what the hell do I have to live for?
Right.
You know? And it's like, yeah, because you're a human being and you have to figure out, you know, why am I here at this point in time? Okay. That's a driving motivation. All right. And that develops you as a person. And I think the other thing we have to talk about before this ends today is we got to talk about that the people in our lives we attach to. And we can attach very well to them, you know, or we can have very poor attachments. And I know you understand that, but there's a lot of people that don't really understand that in their families, there was very poor attachments or none, you know, and they grow up always wanting that. And somewhere down deep, we want that. And if we don't get it, we're less than we should be.
Absolutely. We don't experience, you can't experience fulfillment in true life as a human being because we're wired to be connected relationally.
Yes.
That actually opens up the next level of truly living. All right, we got to take another quick break. Before we do, I just want to say, you're talking about these pro-social skills.
Yes.
And you know, AI is upon us.
Yeah.
And I just a couple weeks ago on a show talked about the fact that I believe that in today's culture, these social skills, your character, those and emotional intelligence, those will be premiums, right? Because the machines can do the thinking. They can do some of the work, but we need people that can think critically. And on that note, that's why we have this 5-Star Life Parent app coming out. You can go to our website, click on the wait list, and get signed up for that. We're here with you. Thanks for tuning in.